Welcome back to Game On. And well, there's been an interesting development in South Africa of late, which has sparked quite an interesting debate, if you will. Ribeiro, out at Mamelodi Sundowns, is doing so well, and he was asked, it has to be announced, it was asked at a press conference. He didn't come out to announce this himself, but he was asked if he would consider playing for South Africa, to which he answered yes. And that's very kind of him, of course, and it sparked the debate, for us as South Africans, players like Sirino, Ribeiro, that don't necessarily play for the national teams and are doing well here in our league. After, let's say, Sirino's been here more than 5 years now, he's a South African citizen as well, he holds a South African passport. Should we consider adopting those players to play for Bafana?
Well, for me, Sizwe, I wouldn't agree on that one, honestly speaking, because we are a country that must nurture our own talent. We always talk about our own style of play in South Africa. So for me, yes, you've got a player like Ribeiro who's a quality, for Sundowns. But if I look back and say, if he's quality from his birth country to come to South Africa, why don't his country take him back to play for the national team in their country? So now if he comes to us, which means he's a surplus to minus in his country, but we want to utilize him. If we're going to play against his country, he's nothing. So for me, I don't think there would be that much contribution because it will temper with his a performance in terms of the upstairs, as a player. So if for me, I'm a South African, I will give it my best. Because in South Africa, ngaya Zimbabwe, ngadlalela one of the big teams in Zimbabwe. Now I'm a player that scored a lot of goals in Zimbabwe, but South Africa don't know anything about me. So, I mean, for me, it doesn't make sense. If he was a quality player, he should have been first preference to his country, and then he says, no, I can't play for my country because I'm already in South Africa for 5 years.
Are you then arguing for Tina South Africans' first preference should always be to developing South African youngsters? Exactly.
Yes, he's a good talent, but now I'm looking back to his from his native country. What he is he a quality? Why did they have to miss him out? Now he comes to South Africa, he's the best player. We want to rope him into our fold as a country. Where our generation? We start talking about Sifunu Gdlala ibhola lasemzansi. Now we're bringing overseas. So I don't know, but that's my problem as a South African.
What about those that argue, Guti, in the past, nations like Tunisia, I remember around 2006, I think they had 1 or 2 Brazilians in the national team at the 06 AFCON. But if Tunisia has done it, maybe Nati, we can consider it. What do you think of those that argue that?
No, I don't think for me we can do that because it has never happened before. It has never happened before. So it's going to be something that will spark a lot of debate and chaos in South Africa. So for me, yes, he's from Sundowns. He's a quality player. I mean, we've seen even the penalty that he took. For me, that shows his quality. But honestly speaking, Guti, I la Bafana. Me not know what to go to Ribeiro. Then I can just go for Wonder Boy Makubu. I can go for Wonder Boy Makubu because for me, he can do the quality that Ribeiro can have. But yeah, because Sundowns is giving him the edge. But Ubutazozalago country for me now. A pick now.
So, no doubt his quality, Ribeiro, and no doubt he adds value to Mamelodi Sundowns. But there's some, like Ucheresko Sana, that feel there are many South Africans, Wonderboy for one, many others, Bomaswanga, that could still be developed to playing for the national team in a similar type of position as Ribeiro. Stay with us, a rather important interview coming up shortly. Time now to move on to the part of the show we promised you a little bit earlier on, where we are having not just a special interview, but I think a rather important interview brought to us by Hollywood Blitz. Joining me now, I have the pleasure of introducing Lebogang Seoheng, the Advocacy, Communications and Prevention Manager of the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation. Lebogang, thank you so much for your time. Firstly, I guess the name South African Responsible Gambling Foundation breaks it down, but I'd like you to take it a step further and just tell us and tell the viewers what it is you guys do exactly.
So the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation provides free treatment and counseling to those that are impacted directly or indirectly by issues of problem gambling. A lot of South Africans are unaware that excessive gambling could lead to a gambling addiction.
Yes.
And it is a mental health condition that needs to be treated if you find yourself gambling a little bit more excessively than you should be. So our purpose is to provide that support through treatment and counseling with our social workers, psychologists and psychiatrists to be able to provide punters out there and South Africans out there equipment and knowledge and tools of how to minimize the potential harmful effects of excessive gambling.
As the Advocacy, Communication and Prevention Manager, what does your job entail?
Sure, our job entails obviously advocating for responsible gambling. It also involves a lot of advocacy work that we need to do with the operators and the regulators in the gambling and the betting space. But it's also to then educate the public about the potential harmful effects that do come with excessive gambling, but also to let them know that free treatment and counseling is available should they find themselves over that particular band when they find themselves, kind of delving too much in issues of gambling.
I see. So by operators, you mean institutions such as Hollywood Bets. And then speaking of Hollywood Bets, just like you to break down your relationship with them and what it is they have to do and what it is they do in trying to be responsible to their own customers, so to speak.
So yes, operators like Hollywood Bets are licensed in South Africa, so they are able to offer their offering legally in South Africa within the confines of the National Gambling Act. And one of those things is to contribute to the 0.1%, which enables us to do the work that we do in terms of treating and counseling their punters.
So they're obliged to the 0.1%?
Yes, they are obliged to do it as a license condition that they have. And over and above that, institutions like Hollywood Bets, for example, have really gone above and beyond what the license condition requires them to do. So they've kind of contributed towards us doing our advocacy work in terms of schools, taking Risk Wisely Schools program, as well as added an additional 5 counselors onto our counseling line, which operates 24/7. So they've really gone beyond, above and beyond the call of duty and license conditions. So yeah, we definitely do appreciate that type of initiative coming from licensed operators in South Africa.
What do you find is the biggest challenge for those that are in that space of betting? I mean, it starts off as a fun, exercise where you can make a bit of money, but also it's fun to guess which games are going to turn out a certain way and to be right or wrong in that regard. But what are the major challenges? Where does it get out of hand?
I think it gets out of hand when one is more preoccupied with it. Again, it's a game of chance. It can go either way. And also kind of spending what you are able to afford to bet with. I mean, if you're going to kind of use your entire salary to bet and the team that you're betting against loses or wins, it's a wager, it's a chance. So I think it's all about the intention of why you're betting and gambling. Yes, it's to win, but if you're trying to gamble or bet for an additional income stream, that becomes problematic because then you invest everything in there. And it's a win-lose kind of 50-50 scenario.
How addictive is winning?
It is addictive. It really is addictive. I mean, it goes through the brain chemical system. We all know that when you're doing something that makes you feel good, your dopamine hormones are released. And therefore, you always want to be reaching that high. But when it comes to betting and gambling, there are financial responsibilities that one needs to be very cautious about, and it's a risk as well.
Well, Lebogang, we'd like to thank you so much for your time in educating our viewers, of course, on the dangers. And long may your work last, and you're doing well for the community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, there you have it. That is Lebogang Seoheng, Advocacy, Communications and Prevention Manager for SARGF.